Okay, now, in a previous video, I talked about Marvel Studios and how successful they were in their setup and execution of Infinity War, Thanos, Endgame, all of that. It is something that should be studied, should be marveled at. That was a pun, I didn't even mean it. Should be replicated. This is how to do it. This is how you set something up. This is how you execute it. This is how you build up anticipation, how you get people involved in your story. The only thing I can really think to compare it to is Harry Potter, the 7 books, and subsequently the 8 movies. There were things in the first book that were relevant in the 6th movie, or even the 6th book, or even the 7th book. There were problems in the films because the people who wrote the films didn't know what they needed to include. So unfortunately, I don't think the films really carried through adequately compared to the books. Looking at it now that it's completed, if they were to make it again, which they might do it. I think they're planning to do a streaming series based on Harry Potter, the original 7 books. They know what they need to leave in. So anyway, what happened after Endgame? Did Marvel set things up properly? Did this contribute to, I think, less interest in some of the subsequent films? So let's take a look. I've prepared this on my tablet again. So the theme is, if you don't, oh, almost toppled my mic there. Whoops. So the theme is, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there. So if you got 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 movies, 15 movies, 20 movies planned, and they're all going to culminate in some big showdown against the big bad, you really have to know that ending. You have to know where you're going so that you can lay the groundwork, you can lay the breadcrumbs, as it were, and then the audience can follow along and get hints and get clues, and all of the pieces you need are in place on the board when it comes time for the final showdown. So, in the first 3 phases, we've had references to the Celestials. We saw the Celestials in previous films. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 showed a full-size Celestial in a kind of a flashback destroying a planet. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Avengers Infinity War, because we visited Nowhere, which is the head of a dead Celestial. So we've seen them in their full size, they've been established, and we understand they're very, very powerful. So that's something that's been previously set up in the first 3 phases. So it makes sense to carry on from there, and that is a very good, I guess, big bad for the heroes to face off against. So basically, were the Celestials affected by the snap? Did half of the Celestials disappear? The Infinity Gauntlet or the Infinity Stones were used twice on Earth in the space of about 6 years, so making Earth a kind of a center point of this. Wouldn't that draw their attention, especially if half of them had been snapped into non-existence? That is a very huge threat to them. But let's take a look at what happened in Phase 4. Now, before I start Phase 4, I want to look at Phase 3, because Phase 3 had one more film I didn't talk about last time, Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I didn't include it last time because there were no real hints at future films. It was kind of the aftermath of Endgame, in a sense. And it was very much the next step of Spider-Man's story. But there's one thing that was interesting. The villain, Mysterio, claimed to be from an alternate reality. And he called the main Earth, the Marvel Cinematic Universe Earth, where Spider-Man lives, Earth 616, which is what it's known as in the comic books. It's Earth 616. But this was a lie. Mysterio wasn't actually from an alternate reality, so that number should have no meaning at all. He wasn't from another Earth. But it does kind of put that seed in people's mind that there could be other Earths. But he was lying. So that doesn't really plant the seed, I think. He was lying. He wasn't from another Earth. He called the main Marvel Cinematic Universe Earth, Earth 616. But what does it mean? He was lying about all of that. And we also know that Fury is in space. So we've got a little space hint. Now, beginning Phase 4 proper. The first film was Black Widow. Now, Black Widow was set after Captain America Civil War, but before Infinity War, when Natasha was on the run, and before she broke her friends out of the Shield prison. I think it's the Raft. There's no real tie-in to future films in the sense of setting up a bigger story, and it introduces a new Black Widow, who is her sister. It introduces Red Guardian. It introduces Taskmaster. None of that ties into a bigger villain, a bigger set piece. None of those characters returned in any of the further movies, although the Black Widow's sister did appear in the Hawkeye Disney Plus series. That's it. So Black Widow is just a farewell to that character. Fair enough. Now we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That's, I think, for me, the first real movie of Phase 4. It's the first film setting up new Marvel post-Endgame. We have another dimension where monsters come from. It's not an alternate reality. It's not an alternate Earth. It's another dimension. And that's similar to Dormammu's dimension, the dark dimension. It's similar to the mirror dimension. And those are all mystical. There is a cameo in the film of Wong from Doctor Strange. But the main point of Shang-Chi are the Ten Rings themselves. We have powerful artifacts, the Ten Rings, which are ancient and can prolong one's life. And we've seen with Captain Marvel that exposure and being altered by the Tesseract, by the Space Stone, one of the Infinity Stones, she's basically not aging. It's been 30 plus years, maybe, probably 30 plus years, and she looks exactly the same. So we do have that aspect that maybe something related to these cosmic artifacts could alter baseline humans in some way. There's a mid-credits scene which shows Shang-Chi, Banner, Captain Marvel, and Wong, so we have science, cosmic, and magic, analyzing the Ten Rings and finding that they're acting as a beacon to something. They're sending a signal, they're a beacon to something in space. Now, I'm fully thinking Celestials, ancient artifact, powerful, sending a signal off Earth. The original canon has Celestials being very old, very powerful, visiting worlds and seeding life or experimenting on life, returning at various intervals to check on these experiments and destroying what doesn't please them. They took the basic proto-humans on Earth and spun off the Eternals and the Deviants, along with implanting potential for mutation with an X gene in another type of humans. We have baseline humans, X-gene humans, Eternals, and Deviants. Now, in comic book lore, the Eternals live on Titan, which is, one of the moons, I think it's orbiting Saturn, and that's where Thanos comes from. He's an Eternal, but he's got a deviant gene that has kind of become dominant. That's why he looks so different from other Eternals. Now, the movies didn't follow this particular canon. They followed a different canon, which was established later. But Shang-Chi, the Ten Rings, I'm thinking those are celestial technology. So, moving on, the next movie is Eternals. So, going along with. Oh, damn it. I keep hitting the mic. Going along with cosmic storytelling. Formally introduces the Celestials as characters, as well as the Eternals and the Deviants. Now, this has different lore for the Eternals and different lore for the Deviants, but we do have the Celestials manipulating them, creating them. That's all fair enough. And the Celestials must have come to Earth before, for some reason, based on what we see in the movie. And these have aspects of a newer canon, which I don't like, but nonetheless, this seems to be setting up having Eternals return to Earth to judge its inhabitants' worthiness. This is, in fact, how the film ends. There is potential to include an X gene and bring in mutants because of Celestial's, comic canon. And in the mid-credits, we have a scene where we see some of the team in space, where they meet another Eternal claiming to be Thanos' brother. And that's all accurate to the comics, but it's not accurate to the film that it's in, and it's not accurate to previous movies either. So it's starting to get a little bit mixed up here. But anyway, we have the Eternals. They reference the snap and the blip, and they reference the Avengers. And we meet a Celestial. We see more about Celestials. So Shang-Chi, Celestials. Eternals, Celestials. Now let's move on. The end credits scene also hints at Blade and the Black Knight. And the Black Knight has another old artifact, the Ebony Blade, that's revealed. And the mid and end credit scenes serve only to suggest future films, but not necessarily a larger story. But I think looking at Shang-Chi and looking at the Celestials' presence in the Eternals, I think they've already laid some groundwork to have the Celestials as the main villain in an upcoming movie. So, I'm not used to having the mic here. The next film, Spider-Man No Way Home. So the pandemic did put some delays and some shuffling into what was going on, and there were a lot of things coming out on Disney Plus. So we have a Spider-Man film, and then really quickly after that a Spider-Man film, and nothing in theaters very much. Anyway, Spider-Man No Way Home. Suddenly, boom! The multiverse is real. Okay. Doctor Strange botches a spell, allowing alternate versions of Spider-Man and some of their foes to come to the main Marvel Cinematic Universe Earth. It's a great film, but how does this tie in to what the previous two films in this phase were setting up? The Celestials, the cosmic side. Plus, Mysterio was lying about being from an alternate reality. So what was the point of Mysterio lying about being from an alternate reality? And then the next film, just dives into the deep end of the multiverse. Okay, so now we have Eternals with Celestials, and they're supposedly coming back. And Spider-Man with the multiverse. Okay. Next is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Multiverse again. So Marvel is leaning hard into the multiverse concept now. We visit a lot of alternate Earths, and we see different versions of some familiar characters. And we learn that the main MCU Earth is actually Earth 616. It's referenced as 616 in this film. So was Mysterio lying? Did he make a lucky guess? Did he somehow know that? I don't understand. Were they really thinking when he named it 616 in Spider-Man Far From Home? Was Mysterio lying? How did he get the number right? What? I'm not sure. Mid-credit scene, a sorceress visits Doctor Strange and needs his help with an incursion, which is a multiverse crisis. An Earth is going to collide with another Earth and wipe each other out, or only one can survive. So what was the point of setting up cosmic things in the Eternals? And what was the point of suggesting at cosmic things in Shang-Chi? Are the Celestials coming back to judge the Earth, as was warned in Eternals? I don't get where Marvel wants to go at this point. Now, they're looking at multiverse, but we also have Celestials definitely set up as a clear threat coming to judge the earth. Then we go to Thor, Love and Thunder, which I didn't like very much. I thought it was horrible. So Thor visits other gods from various worlds and various theologies. We see the living tribunal. We also see the shape of eternity, which is the embodiment of the entire universe. And the living tribunal is above that. The living tribunal is cosmic, maybe the second most powerful entity in Marvel, which hints at cosmic themes again. There's nothing multiversal here. In the comics, the Celestials and Eternity and Galactus, they all interact quite a bit. Living Tribunal is kind of above that, although sometimes he will comment or come in and adjudicate things, and so on. There's nothing about the multiverse in this film at all. A mid-credit scene threatened Hercules coming to avenge his father's embarrassment at the hands of Thor. And the end credit scene shows Jane Foster going to Valhalla. So there's nothing multiversal here. Nothing multiversal in this film. This film sets up a Thor versus Hercules film, but nothing else. What was the point of this film? It didn't set up any new characters except potentially Hercules. It did lean more toward cosmic things like Celestials than it did toward a multiverse. So this film didn't progress anything. So we've got Black Widow, which goes backwards to pre-Infinity War. We've got Spider-Man Far From Home, which doesn't set up anything. So we've got Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Thor Love and Thunder. That's 4 films. The next film is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Nothing multiversal here. There are other sources of vibranium, which means there might have been more than one asteroid because vibranium came to Wakanda in the form of an asteroid. Vibranium grants special abilities to people exposed to it in the right way. Namor is a mutant, full stop. He calls himself a mutant. So could this be the X gene being affected by this, cosmic energy source, cosmic power source, this vibranium? So vibranium came from space, which fits in with a cosmic storyline. Some comic stories connected with vibranium also connect with the Celestials. There was really nothing in this film that sets up anything related to a larger story overall, and there's nothing multiversal at this point. So looking at the films so far, if I include Spider-Man Far From Home, we've got Far From Home, which is kind of, I guess, the end of Phase 3. But we've got Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow's back before Infinity War, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So arguably 5 to 7 films. Now, by the 6th film, we had already seen Thanos in the first Avengers movie. So by the 6th film, they revealed our big bad, and then they had somewhere to go from there, which will be the Infinity Gauntlet. And Marvel just started putting the pieces on the board. Now we're at 7 films, or debatably 5 if you count Spider-Man Far From Home. And is that right? Yeah, if you count Spider-Man Far From Home, and if you count Black Widow. So it could be 5, it could be 7. But nothing's really been set up at all for the future. We haven't seen the bad guy. We don't know what the threat is. They're not really building toward anything. Now, moving into Phase 5, and it starts with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We officially meet Kang in the movies for the first time. Now, Kang was seen in the Loki series on Disney+. I'm not counting anything on Disney+, because I think the movies have to be their own thing. So we officially meet Kang in this movie. Kang has some credibility as a major threat, but he is a time traveler from the distant future. And while there are various versions of Kang, and he might fit in with something multiversal, what is his goal? How was he hinted at before this in the movies? Nothing at all. Mid-credit scene shows us a lot of Kangs having a huge conference for some reason, all from alternate timelines, alternate Earths. Are they planning to attack the main Marvel Cinematic Universe Earth, which we know now as Earth 616? The end credit scene refers to the second season of the Loki streaming series and deals with Kang again. It's multiversal, I suppose, but the quantum realm is not an alternate reality per se. It's just another dimension that might serve as a gateway into various realities or timelines. So let's say this is leaning multiversal. So we've got one or two films leaning cosmic and celestials. If I include Thor, Love and Thunder, that'd be 3. Then we've got 3 films that potentially lean multiversal. So it's split 50-50. Half of Phase 4 was cosmic leaning. The end of Phase 4 was largely multiversal. This film leans towards a multiversal larger arc with Kang as the big bad. And I know that's what Marvel's plan was. I just don't think they've set up the groundwork for it. Next, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Cosmic again. Nothing multiversal here at all. If anything, this is related to experimentation on life forms, which is what the Celestials do. This is a send-off for the Guardians of the Galaxy members, not setting up anything or laying groundwork for a larger story. So Marvel isn't doing a good job of setting up a multiversal arc, but if I look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I want to lean more toward cosmic than multiversal. Now, going into the next film, which is the most recent one, The Marvels. This is cosmic. This is space-related. The first film showing Kamala's bangle and its partner bangle. So there are 2 of these bangles. I'm not counting the Disney Plus series, remember. So this is the first time film goers have seen Kamala. These bangles are ancient. They're from space. This is, again, hinting at celestial technology like Shang-Chi's 10 rings. As with the Infinity Stones, these bangles seem to awaken latent mutant abilities in humans. Not the Kree or other alien races, apparently, because a member of the Kree was using a bangle. It didn't alter her in any way. Perhaps Carol Danvers, Kamala, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch all had latent X genes, which were awakened by exposure or by experimentation to the Infinity Stones or these cosmic artifacts. And then the bangles were used to rip a hole in reality and send Monica to an alternate Earth, one with mutants and a different version of Captain Marvel, as we see in the mid-credits scene. So this is just like tacked on. We gotta try to fit multiversal stuff in here because that's where we're leaning. So this one has me confused. Is it cosmic and celestial related or multiversal? Only due to the last minutes of the film and the mid-credit scene. It's like they tacked that ending on to link it to a multiversal storyline without doing any work to set things up. So the rest of Phase 5 is not out yet. There's a Deadpool movie, which is linked to things set up in both Loki series. So it's definitely multiversal with alternate realities. There's a Captain America film coming out with the new Captain America, formerly the Falcon. And I can't see how that can be cosmic or multiversal. Captain America is not really that type of hero. It's more political, it's more military. And then there's a Thunderbolts film, which brings back Red Guardian, Taskmaster, Black Widow's sister, and other secondary characters and villains or former villains as a fighting force. But I can't see how that can be cosmic or multiversal either. So that's where Phase 5 will wrap up. Deadpool, a new Captain America film, and a Thunderbolts film. Now, I just don't get what Marvel's plan was, but if you're going to spend, a couple $100 million making a movie, you want to get a return on that. And that requires making this an event. It has to be a must-see kind of film. And if you're invested in the characters, if you're invested in the overall storyline, for example, as with Harry Potter, you want to see Voldemort go down. You want to see Harry and his friends win. So that last film is a payoff that's been set up over the first 6 or 7 movies. Looking at Star Wars, the original trilogy, you want to see them rescue Han. You want to see Luke complete his training and become a Jedi. And you want to see the real showdown between Luke and Darth Vader and the Emperor. So they've set up something you want to see it paid off. Looking at the prequel trilogy, which I didn't like very much, the third film, how did the Jedi fall? How did the Emperor ascend? How did Anakin get in the suit? Right? There is some anticipation. There is a sense of payoff. There's a reason to stick around and watch that third film. Well, as happened before, I wasn't paying attention, and my camera does have a limit. It'll record up to 29.5 minutes before it automatically shuts off, and I wasn't paying attention. So it shut off in mid-sentence, so I'm going to just trim the end where I was babbling a lot, and I'll just leave it and end this video. So basically, I think the audience doesn't feel like they have to see the next film. It's been a long time since we saw Ms. Marvel, so there's no investment there. Spider-Man did well. Doctor Strange did well. Those carried over well. Shang-Chi started things off really well. The Black Panther film, some people wanted to see Chadwick Boseman, but he passed away, so that might have had some influence. But the first one was an event film. The first kind of all-black character having his own film, that kind of thing. The second film, again, a long time since we saw the first Black Panther. So the pandemic did delay things. So there are a lot of reasons why some films supposedly underperformed or didn't reach the heights of their predecessor. But all in all, I think Marvel just doesn't know where they're going. And it's obvious. So we'll have to see from here what they can do, how they can salvage things. See what the next films do. But this is an example of kind of losing the point and not having a clear plan. And when you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars per film, it is a bit of a risk. Anyway, I'll stop there. I'm going to see how I can clip this ending together to give this a proper ending. Anyway, I'll end it now. So this little ending here, just pretend that it smoothly transitioned from what I was saying before. Bye. Thanks for watching.